This week's video is not only triple the magic, but also triple the fun. Hello everybody, Nicky Marra here and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you all have had a fabulous week and are ready for yet another fun ranking video. Now, as you might recall, a couple weeks ago, I did a two-part video series on my personal ranking of Disney's most iconic duos. In part one, we discussed the lower half of my list, where some of my not-so-favorite duo characters landed. And in my part two video, we talked about all of my absolute favorite Disney duos. And while in those two videos, we covered a long list full of iconic Disney characters that are really synonymous with another, in today's video, we are adding one to the mix. As over the years, Disney has created some iconic trios of Disney characters that just really can't be thought of out of that context. Whether the trio is made up of siblings, perhaps a love triangle, best friends, or even a found family, Disney trios have honestly been in the shadows for a long time, but today we are pulling back the curtain and giving these iconic characters some love and recognition. But if you are new to the channel, hi, my name is Nicky Marra and I'm a Disney content creator. I got my start over on TikTok, but have joined the YouTube community and have been loving making long form videos for you guys, of which I have brand new videos coming out every single Friday at 5 p.m. So if you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe down below so that way you never miss out on any future magic from me. And likewise, if you would like to find me on any of my other social medias, my handle is @NickyMarra with 2 Y's and 2 R's, and you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat for even more magic. Now, as always on the channel, I am going to briefly jump into some disclaimers and then conditions for our ranking list today, and followed by a short list of talking points we're going to be sure to touch on for each individual trio that we talk about in today's video. But if you would like to just jump right into our ranking video today, then you can head right to this timestamp. First and foremost, for the disclaimers, I am not associated with the Walt Disney Company, and therefore I don't speak for the brand or the company, and any and all opinions in this video are just my own and do not reflect those of the brand or the company. But secondly, I welcome any and all opinions surrounding these incredible Disney trios down in my comment section. And I also very much want to encourage you, if I happen to leave a trio off of my personal list today that you really, really love, make sure to give them some love down in the comments. I always love getting to connect with all of you about all of your Disney favorites, so make sure to leave all your thoughts down below. And thirdly, for our disclaimers, I do want to give a brief spoiler warning for all of the Disney characters and Disney movies that we are going to be talking about in today's video. I don't plan on going into too much plot analysis for this video, so while I don't really think spoilers could be that big of an issue, there could definitely be a possibility where I happen to spoil something for you if you haven't seen these movies, and so I just wanted to leave that here as a precaution. But yes, if I happen to mention a Disney trio or a Disney movie that you don't want spoiled, then I recommend just jumping on up to the next number on today's list. But next, friends, we're moving into the conditions for today's list. In order to be considered for my ranking of Disney trios, all 3 of the Disney characters must either come from an original animated Disney movie, or an original animated Pixar movie. Yes, we're including Pixar on the ranking list today. They must all come from the same animated movie and must all interact with each other at some point in the movie. And really what I am going for is 3 characters that are synonymous with each other. As soon as you think of one, you think of at least one of the other 2. Again, they can be a trio in many different contexts, as we already discussed, such as siblings, friends, love triangles, found family. There are a lot of different scenarios in which Disney characters can make it onto today's ranking list. And the final condition for our ranking list is that I am going to be limiting today's list to just 15 trios. Now, don't get me wrong. Each number we're talking about includes 3 characters, so there's still a list of 45 characters on today's list. But yes, in terms of the grouping of all of these characters, we are going to be limiting today's list to 15 trios. And with all of the disclaimers and conditions out of the way, I believe we are ready to move into our talking points. And these are just all of the topics of discussion that we are going to be sure to touch on for each individual trio on my ranking list. After identifying each trio on the list, we are first going to talk about the Disney animated movie or Pixar movie from which the trio can be found. We're next going to be talking about the general role that the trio plays in their animated movie, such as if they are sidekicks, heroes, main characters, comedic relief. What purpose do these characters serve? Thirdly, we're going to be talking about the dynamic of the group, meaning do they all like each other? Is there some jealousy or competition? Do they all have a common goal in mind in their animated movie? And the final point we're going to be sure to touch on is their overall impact on the Walt Disney Company. And this final talking point just encompasses their presence in the Disney Company outside of their animated movie. Can you meet them in the parks? Do they have a ride or an attraction, or do they appear in a show? Essentially, that is just how this trio has impacted the company outside of their original animation, if they have at all. So yes, friends, with all of that out of the way, I believe it is finally time to jump into my official ranking of Disney trios. So friends, without any further ado, sit back, relax, grab yourself a snack and a drink, and let's get into my definitive ranking of Disney trios. We are starting today's list all the way down at the bottom at number 15, who are Victor, Hugo, and Laverne. Now, Victor, Hugo, and Laverne can all be found in the 1996 Disney animated movie, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And as for the role that these three lovable gargoyles play in their animated movie, they are indeed comedic relief. However, there is also hints towards the fact that they could be a part of Quasimodo's conscience, especially seeing as not a lot of other characters in this movie interact with the three of them besides Quasimodo himself. So it is entirely possible that they are a part of the imagination of Quasimodo. But as for the dynamic that this animated trio has, each has a very distinct personality and they often banter with each other, but through it all they are united in supporting their friend Quasimodo. Now, of this animated trio, I would say Victor is definitely a comedic relief character. Hugo, the second gargoyle, is sort of that bumbling character, the one that is more so a laugh at rather than a laugh with. And finally, Laverne is rather motherly towards Quasimodo and honestly seems like the unofficial leader, as she seems to be the brains behind the operation. And as for their overall impact on the Walt Disney Company, while there was a mixed reaction to these three characters upon their movie's release, they're usually nowadays more fondly remembered, as they tend to represent the lightheartedness of the balance that this movie really needed, since there are some very dark tones. And while you aren't able to find Victor, Hugo, or Laverne really anywhere within the Disney parks, and not really within any other Disney media, I do think that in their movie they do have an overall positive impact. I will be completely honest in saying that their song is not one of my favorites, and I think the reason why that they rank so low, I'm not gonna lie, is the character Hugo. He is definitely not one of my favorites. And I'm gonna be completely honest, I really do think that the gargoyles would rank a lot higher on a personal ranking list if the character Hugo wasn't in the picture, considering he's really just not one of my favorites, and I just don't love the comedy that he specifically brings to this movie. I really do like the character of Victor, and I really do like the character of Laverne, and I think they both progress the story very well, as well as tying in a lot of like emotional moments with Quasimodo. However, a lot of Hugo's timing is just not a personal favorite with all of his comedy. And so yeah, because of their lack of representation within Disney parks, and for generally being considered a mixed bag amongst audiences, they are indeed going to rank all the way down at number 15, but I do want to mention, they did in fact make it onto the list, of which some other trios did not, so I gotta hand it to them, they couldn't stay off of the list. So number 15, Victor, Hugo, and Laverne. And what's actually a really fun fact about them is that the first two characters that we mention in this trio, Victor and Hugo, is actually the first and last name of the author of the original book, Notre Dame de Paris, from which The Hunchback of Notre Dame was adapted from. So yes, in these characters is a subtle nod to the author of the original work, Mr. Victor Hugo, and as a big Disney trivia fan, I just couldn't help but include that in their ranking segment. But next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 14 on my list, who are the Three Little Pigs, or as they are also known, Fifer, Fiddler, and Practical Pig. Now, the Three Little Pigs, of course, come from Disney's The Three Little Pigs, which was released in the year 1933, but they have also appeared in some follow-up media after their original appearance. As for the role that this iconic trio of pigs originally takes on in their media, they are indeed the heroes of their story. As for the dynamic of this trio, Pfeiffer and Fiddler are rather carefree, while Practical Pig is always cautious and over-prepared. While initially they do clash over this difference in personality, at the end they really do band together, seeing as the reason that they clash is the reason that they're all able to survive. Yes, Fiddler and Pfeiffer, in their carefreeness, really don't plan houses that are going to protect them from the outside elements and outside characters. And when the big bad wolf appears and is able to blow down both of their houses, they very quickly rush over to the third member of our trio, Practical Pig, who has made a house of brick. They're able to take refuge inside and are safe from the big bad wolf, and that is the reason they are all able to gather together and survive through the end. And as for the impact that these three adorable little pigs have had on the Walt Disney Company, they honestly had a very immense early impact on the Walt Disney Company, especially considering the song from this animated work, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, was one of Disney's first big hits. And this animated work became a staple in animation history, and so we gotta hand it to the Three Little Pigs. A lot of our favorite Disney animated movies came around because of these three lovable pigs. Yes, I love the Three Little Pigs. I think they're all so incredibly cute, and it is possible to see them in the Disney parks. They make appearances very rarely, but one of the main memories I have of these Three Little Pigs is in the Spectro Magic Parade, as they used to be in one of the final segments. I really do love all three of them, and I hope that in the future we get a little bit more representation of them in the parks, seeing as I feel like they're a trio that a lot of people forget about, but they are really so cute, and yeah, I love every time I get to see them. They always make me smile. But next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 13 on my list, who are the Bimbettes, who are unofficially named Claudette, Laurette, and Paulette. Now, the Bimbettes, of course, can be seen in the iconic Disney animated movie, Beauty and the Beast, which released in the year 1991. And as for the role that these three sisters play in their original animated movie, they are indeed comedic relief. However, they are also very minor characters and don't impact the plotline. As for the dynamic that this trio has, the triplets are united in their fawning over Gaston. There is a very flirtatious rivalry amongst them, but all three of them do act very similarly to one another, acting as one cohesive unit that sort of travels about the town. And while these three ladies don't have much to do in the original animated film, I do like a very specific detail that was incorporated into their design, as you might notice that each one of them has a slightly different hairstyle, one of which is very similar to Princess Belle, another of which is very similar to Princess Jasmine, and the third of which is very similar to Princess Ariel. So yes, while all three are blonde and really the only distinguishing factor in their animation is their dress color, you can also notice that there are a few nods to some other Disney princesses in their character designs. And as for the impact that this trio has had on the Walt Disney Company, while they haven't made a ton of impact and haven't appeared in a lot of different places, they actually can be seen every single day in a Disney park. As over at Disney's Hollywood Studios, there is the Beauty and the Beast live on stage show. And during the song Belle, all three actually make an appearance during this song, showing up to flirt with Gaston and to cause a little bit of chaos. Yes, all three I think are very silly in this movie, and I really do like their impact on the film, even though it's not terribly big. But finally, friends, in case you weren't aware, this trio of sisters actually have some unofficial names, those being Claudette, Laurette, and Paulette. And if you want to know why these are unofficial names, well, then you're just gonna have to check out my ranking of unnamed Disney characters. Promise full explanation is in that video. But with that, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 12 on my list, who are Harris, Hubert, and Hamish. Now, Harris, Hubert, and Hamish, of course, can be found in the iconic Disney and Pixar animated film Brave, which was released in the year 2012. And as for the role that these triplets take on in their animated film, they are indeed minor characters that serve as comedic relief. These three little kids are a handful, and my god, do they leave a big smile on audiences' faces. Now, as for the dynamic of this Disney trio, they are indeed triplet toddlers who are mischievous and very cunning. And while they are an inseparable group, there truly is no hierarchy amongst them, meaning that they really do all operate as one chaotic unit throughout the entire movie. While it is very difficult to tell a difference between all three brothers, I really do think that adds to their overall chaotic energy, as we constantly see King Fergus, Queen Eleanor, and even Maudie trying to run around and control them. But these three are not to be tamed. They are pure chaos, and I doubt they are going to change as they get older. But as for the impact that they have on the Walt Disney Company, these three brothers are a fan favorite for laughter. They are often featured in some Brave-related merchandise, but in all honesty, the #1 impact that I remember them having was when the Festival of Fantasy Parade over at Magic Kingdom used to feature a Brave float, as all three little brothers could be seen every single day in the Magic Kingdom. I do also honestly remember some instances where the three of them would pop up at random places in a Princess Merida meet and greet. And if I'm just speaking for myself, I know I would absolutely love to see some more park representation for these three chaotic princes. They're all so cute and so funny in their movie. They are honestly one of the funniest parts of the movie Brave, and every second they're on screen, I just absolutely love them, and I want more. They're just so entertaining, and I really do think that they would be a big hit if you were able to interact with them in some way, shape, or form at the Disney parks. And so yes, Harris, Hubert, and Hamish are going to rank at number 12 on my ranking list. Ooh, but next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 11 on my list. This is honestly one I heavily debated leaving on my ranking list, but I am confident that they belong here. At number 11 is Miguel, Dante, and Hector. Now, bear with me for a second because I have an explanation as to why they're here. Now, Miguel, Dante, and Hector all, of course, come from the Disney Pixar film Coco, which was released in the year 2017. And as for the role that this trio plays in their animated movie, they are indeed the heroes of their story. Now, I can already hear you saying in the comments, iconic trio? These three are not necessarily one of the first ones that pop into your mind. And while I will say I agree that all three of their names together don't necessarily sound like an iconic trio, there is a reason why they're here and why my brain personally interconnects all three characters. So let me get into that explanation really quick. As for the dynamic that this trio has in their movie, Miguel is very determined, Hector is both scrappy and kind, and Dante is a very loyal comedic relief. But as for the dynamic and the reason why they rank on my list today, is that they are indeed a found family. While at the very beginning of Coco, these three characters do not seem like they would become an iconic trio, by the very end, they have found a true brand new found family within just the three of them. Dante originally starts off as a dog that is on the streets. As he spends more and more time with Miguel throughout the animated movie, he becomes like an adoptive pet, and not even to mention the alebrije. Additionally, and this is a very big spoiler alert for Coco, so warning you now, later in the film we also find out that Hector is the true father of Miguel. So while at the very beginning of their movie there are no connections between these characters, especially none that they know of, by the end, the connections between all three are truly unbreakable, and there is no going back from them once they have been discovered and made. I love how loyal these characters are to one another as they travel throughout the story together. They of course at times bicker and have banter between each other, but in the end, their bond is stronger than ever, and there is truly no way that they will be able to continue their lives without having each other in it. I just love the connection that these three characters create with each other over this animated film, and it truly seems like that these three characters are so incredibly intertwined, not only through family and lines, but like through fate. And that's not even mentioning their impact on the Walt Disney Company, especially considering for the Disney Company, this was a massive cultural impact on the company. At the awards ceremonies, Coco won Oscars, and this movie has become incredible representation not only around the holiday Dia de los Muertos, but also in merchandise in the Mexico Pavilion. Miguel can be seen every single day in the Adventure Friends cavalcade, and this film's impact, especially for being a Pixar film, is quite vast. I mean, it even transcends just a single park. There are many iconic Disney animated characters that can only be seen in one park. However, Coco's representation expands out to multiple. Yes, I love this trio so much, and while I can definitely hear the arguments that this one isn't necessarily the most iconic animated trio of Disney, I'm gonna include them because, you know what, I'm gonna stand by my decision because I love these characters and I think found family is extremely important and they're all a perfect representation of that within the Disney canon. But next we're gonna move on up to number 10 on my list. At number 10 is Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino. Now this one needs no defense. Now Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino of course all come from the Disney animated film Bolt, which was released in the year 2008. And as for the role that this trio plays in their animated movie, they are all indeed heroes of their film, but there is a little bit of comedic relief sprinkled in with their dynamic in their movie. Speaking of, as for their dynamic in their animated film, all three of them start off at odds with one another, but eventually end up creating another unbreakable bond. Rhino is enthusiastic, Mittens is rather skeptical, and Bolt is noble, honest, and true. And when all three of these personalities are brought together, they create a really fun dynamic, not only in a very honest, true friendship, but also in this sort of buddy comedy where they travel across the country together. We see Bolt and Mittens often banging heads, not getting along, but Rhino really stepping in and being that comedic relief, which in turn sort of creates a glue between the three characters. And again, for a brief spoiler alert, at the very end, all three end up under the same roof with Penny. And so again, much like what we talked about with Miguel, Dante, and Hector, there is a energy of found family between these three characters. And as for their impact on the Walt Disney Company, it honestly isn't the biggest. It has had modest long-term impact, as this movie is mostly remembered for its humor and the heart behind it. But I'll be honest and say that I think Rhino has a pretty small cult following. I think he's a really fun character and oh, he can be a little bit of trouble, but God, don't we love the characters that are like that? Yes, I really, really love Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino, and they absolutely had to make it into my top 15 ranking of Disney trios. The next friends, we're gonna move on up to number 9 on my list, who are Bambi, Thumper, and Flower. Now, Bambi, Thumper, and Flower, of course, all come from the Disney animated film Bambi, which was released in the year 1942. And as for the role that these three characters play in their animated movie, they are all best friends, with Bambi taking the leading character role, and Thumper and Flower taking on supporting roles. And as for the characters' dynamic, as we said before, they are best friends, with Thumper being very outgoing, Flower being rather shy, and Bambi, of course, being the central figure, one that we see grow up over time. But what I honestly love about this trio is how strong their bond is from the very beginning, but also how much it grows through innocence and nature. These three become friends simply because they enjoy each other's company, and they stay that way as they grow into adults. They are all so incredibly cute and so precious, and even though you might think of Bambi as a character who's all on his own, because I do too, whenever I think of Bambi, I can't help but also think of his two best friends. Like, these three are synonymous in my brain. And as for the impact they've had on the Walt Disney Company, all three characters are extremely recognizable. They're also used in a lot of environmental messages, and also a lot of nostalgic branding that the company uses for media. One of the impacts that's in my brain, because I just experienced it, was the topiaries of all three characters that they bring out around Flower and Garden Festival, and likewise how Thumper is so commonly used around Easter time, because he's one of the most well-known bunny characters from the Walt Disney Company. Actually, in a recent merch haul that I did, I also ended up with a Thumper popcorn bucket, so there's some merchandise that they created as of recent that definitely brings these characters into 2025. But yeah, I just really love all three of these characters, again, not only on a cuteness level, but also again, that found family bond that they create over time, that bond is very special to me, and I love getting to see that in Disney animated films, and yeah, quite a few characters on this list end up like that. So yeah, we're gonna add Bambi, Thumper, and Flower to the mix on my list of Disney trios. But next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 8 on my list, the somewhat halfway point of today's list. At number 8, is Toulouse, Berlioz, and Marie. Now, these three precious kittens can all be found in the 1970 Disney animated film, The Aristocats. And as for the role that this trio plays in their animated movie, they are all indeed supporting characters. Even though they're probably some of the most popular characters to come out of this animated film, I would definitely say that they are the supporting characters in this movie. And as for the dynamic that these three kittens have, they truly are your typical sibling characters. Marie is very ladylike, Toulouse is very bold, and Berlioz is on the quiet side. They simultaneously tease each other relentlessly, but are always there for each other. And I love this kitten trio because they are so deep in their familial roles, because they will never miss an opportunity to make fun of each other. However, if another character outside of this trio is giving them trouble, they are standing up for each other no matter what. Likewise, I also love the relationship that they have with their mother, Duchess, as well as their brand new adoptive father, Thomas O'Malley. I love that they operate very successfully as a trio, as their own unit, but also are able to have very deep and personal relationships with other characters in this animated film. That, in my opinion, makes them feel extremely deep as a trio, and why they rank a lot higher than some other characters on today's list. But as for their impact on the Walt Disney Company, they are very popular in merchandise sales, and specifically in some Disney baby branding. I've been seeing a lot of infant merchandise in the Disney parks as of recently that very much features these three little kittens. And it's so cute, I'm so here for it. But yes, amongst their appeal to younger audiences, these kittens, specifically Marie, has popped up more so as of recently over the past few years. Even to the point where Marie can be seen in the Adventure Friends cavalcade every day in the Magic Kingdom. Now we just gotta get Toulouse and Berlioz in the show and then we'll be good to go. But yes, I personally have definitely noticed a resurgence in all of the Aristocats merchandise, and I'm totally here for it. I absolutely love these characters. I think they're so cute, and really, honestly, they're a trio that I think anybody in this world that has a sibling will be able to look at and recognize, oh yeah, that's quite accurate. And then for people like me in this world who don't have a sibling, I can look at that and be like, oh, that's what it would be like. These three characters are an experience all on their own, and I absolutely love them. And yes, that is why Toulouse, Berlioz, and Marie rank at the halfway point of my ranking of Disney trios. But with that, friends, let's continue on up to number 7 on my list, and let's get into the top half of today's list. At number 7 is Mr. Toad, Ratty, and Molly. I love these three characters. They are so funny. Now, Mr. Toad, Ratty, and Molly, of course, all come from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which was released in the year 1949. And as for the role that this trio takes on in their animated movie, they are all indeed heroes in their animated film. As for the dynamic that this trio has, Mr. Toad is the leading character, of course, but he is very wacky, zany, and impulsive. And on the other hand, Ratty and Molly are a lot more grounded and responsible. They definitely try to bring Toad back to Earth and help him in all of his troubles throughout his film. Their friendship in their animated film is constantly tested, but what I love about them is that no matter how different they are from each other, their relationship always stays intact, as once again, they're always going to do everything that they possibly can to be there for one another, even through legal trouble. Now, I definitely know just from saying it that these three characters are not one of the first ones that pop into your mind when you think of iconic trios. However, in revisiting this animated film, these three characters stick together like glue. They are constantly there for one another, and what's fun is we get to see them in a lot of different scenarios. At one point, Mr. Toad ends up in jail and tries to escape, and Ratty and Molly have to deal with the implications of trying to help him. Like, their relationship goes very, very deep into all of this, and through it all, they go on some crazy adventures together, even to the point of trying to rescue Mr. Toad's home, Toad Hall, and when doing so successfully, well, I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say this ending is very wacky and silly. Yes, I absolutely love getting to watch this trio in their animated film, and can only wish that we get even more representation for them within the Disney parks. I know that they have a ride all to themselves over in Disneyland, but as a chronic Disney World goer and not as frequent a Disneyland goer, I miss them so much, and I do like getting to see their little cameos in the Winnie the Pooh ride, so I guess that will just have to do for me for now, but I'm gonna keep on loving these three, I promise. Ooh, but next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 6 on my list. This one is a creepy trio. At number 6 are the Fates, otherwise known as past, present, and future. Now, the Fates can be found in the 1997 Disney animated film Hercules, and as for the role that they play in their animated movie, they are indeed minor villains. They seem to have an all-knowing, almost omnipotent nature about them. However, they don't do too much in their animated film. So I don't know, I just really love them. But as for this trio's dynamic, they work together in an almost eerie unison with some disagreement around certain topics. And as a trio together, they all share a single eye and a special thread. This special destiny thread is used when stretched out, and when it's cut, it ends the life of a mortal on Earth. What's really funny about them is that when they appear in their animated film and have this almost all-knowing nature, they use it in a very comedic way. Even to the point of Hades, our main villain, even getting slightly annoyed at them, even though they seem to have significantly more power than he does. I honestly love these three. I think they have, again, such a creepy energy about them, but in a way that's oddly comedic. Like, if we were to meet them as meet and greet characters in Disney, I feel like they would be significantly more on the side of like comedic evil rather than like scary to approach. But on that topic, as for their impact on the Walt Disney Company, they're honestly very visually memorable to audiences and are sometimes used in merchandising. Actually, their use in the animated film helped to establish the Greek mythology theming within Disney's adaptation, especially considering a lot of the ancient gods either had Roman or Greek interpretations, and their presence in the movie very much solidified it in Greece, along with other things, but their presence also helped. Yes, I absolutely love the Fates. I think they are so funny, honestly have some of the best jokes in the animated film, and I think their presence is equally important and comedic, and so I had to include them on today's list. I just love them so much, and honestly, if I had one wish, I hope that at some point they show up at a Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party. That would be such a cool experience to meet the Fates at a special ticketed event for Disney. But with that, friends, we have reached number 5 on my list. We are entering into my top 5 favorite Disney trios. If you have any guesses as to who's gonna make it in the top 5, make sure to leave them down in the comment section. But with that, friends, we are gonna move on up to number 5 on my list, who are Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed. Oh, these hyenas. God, how I love them. Now, Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed can be found in the 1994 Disney classic, The Lion King. And as for their role in their animated film, they are indeed villain sidekicks to Scar, yet they also serve as a comedic relief in the film. As for their dynamic, Shenzi is the unofficial leader of the trio, with Banzai being the more aggressive and Ed being, oh, the sweet poor dear, he is indeed the comedic relief. Again, not so much a comedic relief that you laugh with, but more so one that you laugh at. And for their overall vibe, they do have a pack mentality, but they definitely bicker amongst each other, especially over some very important details in this film. Again, another Disney trio that has 3 characters who are all very different from each other, but who are synonymously known together under the same energy of their trio. When you think about it, if you were to take the character dynamics of each of them, looking at Shenzi with such a straightforward thinking mind who is definitely a leader, and then Ed who chews on his own foot, they definitely do not seem to be characters who would fit together, but in this movie, they just make it work, and honestly, they are such a joy to watch, while also being quite terrifying at times. Their presence definitely threatens Simba and all of his friends, and likewise, spoiler alert, their presence also is the downfall of the Disney villain of the film. So they have quite a bit to do and a very heavy impact on their film, while also having a very lighthearted side to them. And yes, as for their impact on the Walt Disney Company as a trio, they are indeed rather memorable henchmen who appear not only in the Broadway musical of The Lion King, but also in the other adaptations of this animated film. They are very seldomly left out of any mainstream media having to do with The Lion King, as they're so well remembered for not only their humor, but also their menacing nature. I will say this trio is honestly very successful in their ability to balance both of those energies. I honestly love this trio. They are always either making me smile or making me a little bit scared when watching the film. But yes, Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed just could not escape the top 5 of my ranking of trios. And if you want to hear me talk even more about Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed, then I will link my ranking of Disney villain sidekicks up above for you. But next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 4 on my list, a love triangle. At number 4 is Ichabod, Katrina, and Brom Bones. Yes, a video where I get to talk about the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad twice in one video. I'm on cloud 9. Now yes, as I just said, of course, this iconic trio of Ichabod, Katrina, and Brom Bones all come from The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which was released in the year of 1949. And as for the role that these 3 characters play in their animated movie, they are the leading characters of their story. Leading characters of the story who also serve as the love triangle at the center of the story. But yes, as for this trio's dynamic, Ichabod and Brom Bones throughout this film are competing for the hand of Katrina. But what's one of the funniest things about this dynamic is that throughout it all, Katrina remains very coy and ambiguous and never really lets on who she's really interested in. All of this definitely helps to create more tension and rivalry, and at the end of the day, like, you watch this film and you just think Katrina's just really enjoying the attention from it all, but Brom and Ichabod are definitely at odds with one another to try to win her hand. I honestly love these characters so much. I think they're all extremely entertaining, and all of the actions that they take in their animated film really do make quite a bit of sense for who each character in this trio is established to be. And while you may not immediately associate all of these characters together, I do think when you think about the story as a whole, the 3 of them are synonymous with one another, because if one of these characters disappeared, the entire plot line all the way up until the fateful end with the Headless Horseman wouldn't exist. I love these 3 characters separately from one another. I think they're all very deep and interesting for them only appearing in half of the runtime of their film. But regardless, when brought together and forced to interact with each other in this love triangle, it makes everything seem so much more complicated and convoluted that I love their dynamic, and I love how these characters fit together in this, like, awkward, funny puzzle. But yes, as for their impact on the Walt Disney Company, they are iconic Halloween representation for the company. While Brom and Katrina sort of sit in the background of this energy, Ichabod Crane himself is honestly brought to the forefront. He is very heavily used around Halloween time. The scene with the Headless Horseman has become a Halloween staple in the Disney canon, and with Ichabod being a part of that, and with his love triangle being at the main storyline, that sort of also ropes in Brom and Katrina into this Halloween energy. Again, how I talked about how cool it would be for, like, the Fates to be at the Halloween party, I would love to see these 3 characters brought into the Disney parks. I know for a fact that Ichabod has definitely appeared over in Disneyland, but imagine a specialized Halloween meet and greet where you could meet all 3 characters at the same time, all in that bickering energy with the love triangle. I think this would be such an incredible experience to have at the Halloween party, especially because these characters innately have a very interesting connection with one another, but as soon as you are walking up and interacting with all of them, gosh, I feel like anything's on the table. Yes, I absolutely love Ichabod, Katrina, and Brom. I love seeing them interact in their movies, and I can only hope we get even more of them in the future of the Disney canon. But next, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 3 on my list. At number 3 is Wendy, John, and Michael Darling. Yes, at number 3 is the Darling children, who can be found in the 1953 Disney animated film, Peter Pan. As for their role in their Disney animated movie, they are all indeed considered side characters to our main character, Peter Pan, although I would argue that Wendy is probably also a main character in her film. And as for the dynamic that these 3 siblings have with one another, the 3 of them as siblings tend to have an older-younger dynamic. And by that, I mean Wendy, being the oldest, acts a lot more maternal and guarded over the other two. John, being the middle child, is a lot more logical and forward-thinking. And Michael, being the youngest, is very innocent in nature. What I love about these three is that they are united through adventure. Without these three characters, we would not have the plot of Peter Pan, seeing as we are meant to go on this journey with the three darling children. Peter Pan's already been to Neverland, Tinkerbell's already been there, they live there. It's kind of, in a way, old news to them. However, much like Wendy, John, and Michael, we as the audience have not been to Neverland, and so Peter Pan is almost taking us on this journey just as much as he is taking the darling children. Again, like we've discussed about other trios on my ranking list, I love how separate and different that these three characters are from one another, especially because when we think about, like, Michael, the youngest child, forgetting who his mother is after the first 2 days, and we think of Wendy, who is able to sing an entire heart-wrenching ballad about the same woman, they don't seem like characters who would really be in the same energy. However, when they are branded as the sibling characters, they become synonymous with one another. However, knowing that they're siblings and traveling with them as an audience, they really do become synonymous with one another. When you hear the term the darling children, that very quickly flips a switch in your mind and you know exactly who we're talking about. But as for their impact on the Walt Disney Company, Wendy is an especially beloved character as she constantly appears in park meet and greets, many Disney parades, and also a lot of Disney shows. Their flight scene has become synonymous with Disney's branding, and all three are able to be seen every single day in Disneyland and Disney World in Peter Pan's Flight, which is the iconic main attraction based around the animated film. Even the fact that this trio has presence in almost every single Disney park, even if they're not meet and greet characters, their presence in Peter Pan's Flight makes them seem so important within the Disney canon, and I can't help but absolutely love all three of them. They all have their quirks, don't get me wrong. And not to spoil too much, but one of these characters did also appear in my official ranking of my 15 favorite Disney characters of all time, so they had to rank pretty high up on my ranking of Disney trios, but there's still two more we gotta talk about. But with that, friends, we're gonna move on up to number 2 on my list, who are Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather. Oh, I love these three good fairies. I can't wait to talk about them. Now, these three good fairies, of course, graced Disney's screen in 1959's Sleeping Beauty. And as for the role that these three fairies take on in their movie, they are indeed considered supporting characters and also guardians to our titular character. Now, I'm gonna go out of my way and break my script a little bit and say, I think that these three are not supporting characters, but are in fact the main characters of their Disney animated film. As we know, Philip and Aurora really aren't considered the main characters in this film. However, they both get significantly less screen time than the three good fairies and Maleficent. And truthfully, the entire film happens because of the fairies. They not only provide Aurora with gifts, but also protect her from the other fairy who is trying to bring down the kingdom. Because of that, they decide to guard and protect Aurora and step in to raise her themselves. And also, they aid Prince Philip in his adventure to free Aurora. I don't know, even though they're considered side characters, I really do think that they deserve a lot more recognition. But as for the dynamic between these three lovely Disney fairies, they are constantly bickering, but there is definitely a lot of love between them. The majority of the bickering, of course, happens between Merryweather and Flora over a lot of different things, including food, clothing, cleaning the house. But regardless of all of that, all three are constantly devoted to protecting Princess Aurora. Again, Fauna is not so much a character to be laughed at, but she sort of seems like the glue that holds all three of them together, with Merryweather being the underdog, seeing as she is the one who truly protects Princess Aurora by giving her the third gift, but also seeming to be like the comedic relief of them, as she is probably the most bumbling. And then Flora being their loving leader that just happens to make decisions for them all the time. Yeah, I really love these fairies so much. But as for their representation among the Disney canon, they are an iconic fairy archetype for Disney, and they're often used in a lot of adaptations and moments where magical figures should step in. Likewise, they are indeed featured in the Disney parks, specifically in a lot of parades. I know for a fact that they were used in the Magic Happens parade over in Disneyland, but they can also be seen every single day in Magic Kingdom in the Festival of Fantasy parade as they aid Prince Philip in defeating the Maleficent dragon. I absolutely love these three so much. Don't get nearly enough credit for all that they do in their film to help Princess Aurora. And yeah, you know what? I'm gonna take this little moment to say they absolutely deserve to be given the title of leading characters of their film. And I cannot wait to see what other representation Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather receive from Disney in the future. But with that, friends, we have reached number 1 on my list of favorite Disney trios. Have you possibly guessed who it could be? Yes, friends, at number 1, are Donald, Jose Carioca, and Panchito, otherwise known as the Three Caballeros. Now, the Three Caballeros, surprisingly maybe, can of course be found in the 1944 Disney animated film, The Three Caballeros. And as for their role in their animated film, they are indeed the heroes of their story, while also serving as comedic relief. As for the dynamic between these three characters in their trio, Donald is very curious and chaotic, Jose is rather suave and cool-headed, and Panchito is energetic and bold. But throughout their film, they share a common goal of cultural celebration and friendship. I love these three characters so much, and I know it might come as a surprise that they rank at number 1, but for being an iconic Disney trio, their name is literally the Three Caballeros. Even though Donald is a part of the Sensational Six, or Fab Five, whatever you consider, I really honestly do think of him first and foremost in the context of his trio. Every day over in Epcot, Donald does meet in his sombrero and serape, and likewise, this iconic trio also has their very own ride in the Gran Fiesta Tour starring the Three Caballeros over in the Mexico Pavilion in Epcot. While I can definitely understand that their movie is not one of the top movies that comes to your mind when thinking of the Disney canon, I really do think that this trio is so much more deserving of spotlight, considering they are so fun, wacky, and zany, and get into so many cool adventures in their movie. Likewise, one of their members is a VIP character, meaning their entire brand is already elevated because of the recognition Donald gets for being so closely related to Mickey Mouse. And for having an iconic park attraction and constantly appearing in a lot of merchandise, I think that this trio's impact on the Walt Disney Company is absolutely undeniable. Not only their movie, but they also represent Disney's goodwill efforts in Latin America during World War II. There is a lot of rich history behind this trio, and yeah, I can't help but absolutely love them and feel like they are a very important piece of Disney's history. And so for that reason, friends, at number 1 on my list of Disney trios is indeed the Three Caballeros. And well-deserving, if you ask me. But with that, friends, we have reached the end of my ranking of Disney trios. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had so much fun talking about all of these iconic Disney trios. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below so that way you never miss out on any future magic from me. And likewise, if you'd like to find me on any of my other social medias, my handle is @Nicky Marra with 2 Y's and 2 R's. And you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat for even more magic. I want to thank you all so much for all of the love on all the videos that I have been making as of recently. It really means so much to me when I see all of you engaging in the comments and talking about all of your favorite Disney characters. And that's why I love making these videos, because I always love reaching out and connecting with all of you. And so if you want to discover even more of my Disney favorites, I will link my full ranking playlist up above. But with all that, friends, I will say thank you so much for watching. Stay magical, and until next week, I'll see you all real soon.